Welcome to another Soccer Down here 1v1, catching up with friend of the show, John Akin, head coach at Oglethorpe University. John, how's it going?
Going pretty well, Jason. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pretty good season for the Stormy Petrels. Another conference championship in the regular season, postseason around the corner, but let's get caught up on the last week of the regular season. I had a chance to just come watch and not be working for a match this season. That was a lot of fun to see Oglethorpe and Emory, the big crosstown rivalry. And look, it was pretty obvious to anybody watching that there was a little extra in this one, a little extra on the line, a little extra intensity. It was a big win for the program. Tell us how everything went down over at Emory.
Sure. I mean, as you alluded to, it's a massive game. Emory's a fantastic school, and they have traditionally had such a great program. And they're a very good program. They've been in the top 10 all year long. So that's always fuel for the fire. But we got them last year 3-1. The behind the scenes thing is several of their staff is former Oglethorpe staff, so that adds a little bit as well. And we're all friendly, but you know, that extra little, you know, we get to kind of talk about it for a year is always a little extra juice for the game. But you know, we got off to a very fast start. Both teams had tough conference games coming out of the weekend on Friday, Sunday. And then, 5 p.m. kickoff on a Tuesday is a pretty quick turnaround. But we got off, fast and furious and, pushed the envelope as we like to do, had a lot of the ball. I think we didn't allow them a shot until 3 minutes left in the first half. We missed 2 one-on-ones. We hit the bar twice. We missed an open net. The staff and probably some of the players had felt like, oh man, we've been in games like this before. It's not going to happen. And then in the second half, we got a goal. And then the back and forth, they started to carry a little bit of the play for about 12 minutes. We started to fatigue, made some changes. And then we kind of, kept compact, made the game predictable, and got a few chances late, 2 breakaways that we didn't convert, and then they drew even. And then it was a ball whipped in the box. One of their players misclears it. Angel Guevara, one of our freshmen from Brookwood High School, literally has the unbelievable composure to inside the 6, dink it over a defender's head as he's bringing the ball down, and then side volleys with a keeper probably about 12 inches away and slams it in the back of that 2-1. And that sealed the victory for us. But I mean, I felt like we were certainly the better team on the day. I thought we certainly played a better brand, but I mean, Emory's Emory. They're always going to be, very physical, hard nosed, and difficult to play against. So it was tough till the end of the match.
I love that in this one, in a big match against a ranked team, it's 2 freshmen. It's Abraham Lopez, it's Angel Guevara with the goals. How hard is it for you to incorporate freshmen into the program on a regular basis?
We try to adhere to the process where, the best players play. It doesn't matter whether you're a junior or senior or an All-American. If somebody's outperforming you, we'll put you on the field. But you have to earn that in big game scenarios to earn that time, if you will. Even though if you're dominant practice, it's a little bit different story competing in the games. And these guys all season long. I mean, Abraham has 3 game winners against WashU, Emory, and who was the other big game against? Center. I mean, he had the game-winning goal against one of our conference rivals. So, I mean, the guy's been very, very efficient. Angel has been an outstanding player. He's, had a couple injuries here and there that have kept him out of a couple key games, but he's been a dominant force as well. And it's not hard. If they're doing the job, then, they go in. And they've earned that respect from everybody on the field, in the team and the coaching staff and training. In our exhibition matches, and we were very excited about signing those guys. And a few other, Alfonso Temporal is another very special player who's a young guy. I mean, I had to throw out some names for Conference Player of the Year or Freshman of the Year, and I could have gone with any one of those guys, but
Right.
we'll see how that turns out. But very, very exciting to see young guys step up in big games, and get going right away in the program.
So when you're out scouting players and recruiting, what are some of the characteristics that you look for?
Let me draw a contrasting comparison to the typical, college soccer player. Typical college soccer player is, and we're all assuming that, you have to be athletic to be, at any college level for the most part. But, the bigger, stronger, and faster you are, the higher profile program in general you go to. That's been going on for 40 years. I think there are a few programs like ourselves that look for a soccer IQ being really the key factor in how heavily we invest in the recruiting process with players. So a typical guy, like we had a player, Eric Marquez last year, who's a 4-year starter, and he was probably 110 pounds from Utah, but one of the best, most intelligent players I've ever coached against, and he never got caught with the ball. I mean, never. And he managed, to be in very physical games because he could read the game ahead of time. And that's what some of our players that we go after. You need guys that can bang around, and you need guys that can get to the end line and do things like that. But if you can't understand, some of the sequencing that we try to do with 4 and 5 and 6 pass combinations, big, strong, fast doesn't really, equate to fitting in with us.
And that's what I love about it, is that it feels a little different. That Emory game, I think, was a prime example to me watching it. I thought it was the best performance I've seen all season, and I haven't seen, many of the games on the road, but I felt like it was dominant, and I felt like it was soccer at a very high level of quality, not just the result, but the quality of the performance by your group. It was really impressive. After Emory, you go up to Barry, and it's another tough game, but you finish the regular season undefeated in SAA play. How difficult was the Barry match after maybe the emotional swing of the Emory match?
It was. We knew there was going to be a little bit of a, success hangover, fatigue hangover. If you go back a week, it was actually our 4th game in 7 days. We played, Friday, Sunday, Hendricks Rhodes, Emory Tuesday, Barry Friday. And, Emory had the luxury of playing us on equal rest with our previous opponents and then resting through Sunday, and they played Barry. Barry had the benefit of playing 2 conference opponents, resting all week, and playing us. We were the ones that kind of got the short end of the stick. So we had to get those games in, and we just said we have to play. So starting out a little sluggish. You could see the guys, despite having the emotional and intangible goal of being the first program to go through unscathed and get 21 of 21 points through an SAA season. Even though that was on the line, we started out the first 10 minutes were a little shaky. Barry, scraps and very physical, but they've got a great facility to play on, and we used every inch of it to impose our style, if you will. And over time, it just, we had most of the ball. We killed off a lot of the counters early, and it was a good performance. It was, gritty. We made some changes earlier. Some of the midfielders were a little sluggish, obviously, just from the wear and tear of that 4 games in 7 days. But the guys that came in really lifted us up and did well.
So coming up next, it starts with conference tournament play on Saturday, 1 o'clock. Hendricks coming to campus. After that, explain to everybody how the conference tournament works, and then how does the NCAA tournament work? Is it automatic bids? Is it based on rankings? How are things decided for the rest of the way?
Sure. So the Southern Athletic Association tournament format for men's soccer is all 8 teams qualify for the tournament, all 8 conference schools. The lower seed goes to the highest seed. So we're the number 1 seed. We'll play Hendricks the 8 7 will play 2, 6, 3, and 5 plays 4. And the higher seed gets to host. So, excuse me. So if the highest remaining seed after the first weekend's games, because it's split into 2-weekend format, the highest remaining seed will host. So, hopefully, we take care of business and we're the highest remaining seed. Then the semifinals, the 2 semifinal games and the finals will be played in Atlanta at Oglethorpe. If we were to fall, the number 2 or number 3 seed would host those games. So that's how it works. So we would play 1:00 on Saturday, and then the semifinals would be 5 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. We'd play the late game next Friday. We play the winner of the 4-5 seed, which is Barry versus Birmingham Southern. Barry at Birmingham Southern, and then the finals. Both teams that win would play at 12 or 1:00 on Sunday. So, and the winner of our conference tournament gets the automatic qualifier, gets the AQ. So, despite having an unbelievable season and breaking records again, if we were to fall in the conference tournament, we would not get the automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. The good thing is our body of work over the course of the season, 10 wins in a row, beating, WashU, beating Emory, some other very strong teams across the way, our only 2 losses being the nationally ranked teams early, and it being earlier in the year, that helps your cause for an at-large bid. But it's basically a mathematical formula. So if we don't get an AQ, we go into the at-large pools, the pool C. And then based on the committee will be on the phone from probably 3:00 Sunday, November 4th, until probably 12:00 in the morning, trying to calculate the best teams that are in. So a lot of that has to do with how many top seeds get knocked off and kind of lose an AQ, and then that kind of pushes somebody else up the rankings to kind of get in. So we won't know much until next weekend. We'll have a better idea. I have confidence that, with us doing well last year and then this year, and, this is our 7th conference championship in 7 years, that if we were to fall and we win the first round game, I think we would feel pretty good about an at-large bid. But again, we've been down this road before where, there's this Northeastern bias and, some mathematical skews that kind of work against us. And we would hope we would get the chance, but you never know. So.
Well, you have the job in front of you, and after the season that has been had, I don't think anybody's satisfied with where things are right now. Something that's struck me, and it's been an ongoing conversation. I had a long interview last week with Scott Donnelly from Atlanta United too, and we talked about the balance between developing players and getting results. And what's impressed me is, a lot of times I think with college teams, you'll see the young guys get a lot of time early on, but then once you get deeper into the season, you start to settle into a smaller rotation. It's mostly the veterans. That hasn't been the case with your group. I think the freshmen have earned more time as the season's gone on, and it feels like there's a lot of guys that you can rely on. How do you balance that development versus getting results mentality?
That's a good question. I don't think there's, at least for me, an exact formula. Our approach is that we really value training time. And we have certain exercises that we think develop players, and we stress those quite a bit. But the reality is we have some pretty talented kids that have come in, and it always seems to be a good handful the last few years. Christian Wagelin, Andrew Grodhouse, Gabe Alvarez, these guys were starters. Before that, Mike Akin and Gustavo Martinez were 4-year starters, and we have a handful of our guys that are doing that now. So. Again, it's such a quick turnaround, as you know. You get 2 exhibition games, you get about 10 days of practice, and you got to figure it out. So, I would attribute our couple early losses to tinkering. Trying to figure that out, and trying to figure out what goes where, and then you just kind of roll with it and hope the players develop game by game and develop a continuity within themselves. while they're out there in the match, while they're in control of things. So, it's we try to include that in training, and the spring is really where we push very, very hard for development. I mean, there's basically, no results, no results matter at all. So we push hard there, but we also try to include a facet of that in our training methodology. And as we go over the course of the season, hopefully that's a factor in these guys succeeding. I would argue that a lot of these guys have a lot coming in too. So I couldn't certainly take credit for the confidence that they have, the qualities that they have, because I think it's them dedicating themselves to the games, and the coaches that they've had before them holding them to certain standards in which has allowed them to succeed, on the field for us.
Yeah, there's always that taking it to the next level, though. I mean, I think there's a huge element, especially in Metro Atlanta, and I know you bring in lots of players from all over the Metro area. I think the level has improved a lot in the last few years, so you have a higher standard coming in. But then taking, from a youth system, whether it's U.S. Soccer Development Academy or ECNL or High Level Classic, taking that to the NCAA D3 level, which is a very good level. I think there's a lot to be said for what you guys do in preparing a good player for that type of challenge.
Yeah, I think, if I could encapsulate our thought process with that, and I appreciate you nodding some credit there, but a lot of players think that when you get to the professional level, or elite college level, or whatever that top gear is, kids think, oh well, it's got to be this, and I'm sure it's this and this and this, and the reality is, the higher you go up, the more simple the game is played. The fact is, the ratio of not succeeding in a simple task is just much lower. These guys, I mean, as a professional player, I mean, our Oglethorpe kids, are just about as fast or strong or as technical as I was as a professional player. But the difference was, I think, if you would compare, a professional player, Atlanta United 2 guys, top end academy guys, MLS guys, between, an Oglethorpe guy or a Wake Forest guy, it's just a success ratio. The amateur player, will complete 6 of, 10 passes. The college player, a good college player will complete 7. A USL 2 guy will complete 8 of those passes. A top MLS guy will complete 9. And, the best players in the world do it 10 times out of 10. I mean, it's as simple as that. And it's not these, really sophisticated, nuances. It's just really simple things done extremely well over time. And that's the difference. And that's what I try to distill for, our players. Like, let me pull back the curtain, man. Let me tell you what goes on in a professional locker room. Let me tell you really what it comes down to if you want to be on the field at that level. It's doing the simple things very well over and over and over, and and then reading yourself to get in those scenarios as much as possible. And that's just experience.
What I love is that you approach it that way, because I've watched college programs, I've watched USL, NASL, A-League, all of that type of stuff, where you see some coaches and managers approach it that, okay, our players aren't good enough. They can't play like Barcelona, for example. I've heard that multiple times from people. Our players aren't Barcelona. We can't play like Barcelona. But you guys do. And that's the thing, is you play that style. The success ratio, is it there? No, it's not the same. But
right.
You play that style and you push your players to play that style, and I think you get the most out of them. And that's really refreshing to see.
Well, I mean, I take the approach that, and I might have mentioned this before, but, I don't get a win bonus for winning a national championship, but I could go 0-20 and not lose my job. So I want to start from that foundation of, security, and respect the fact that in some environments, coaches aren't given that latitude. That being said,
for sure.
I wouldn't coach a team. You have to deal with what you're working with, but in our environment, and certainly in the college process of higher education, we are developing the well-rounded individual, both intellectually and athletically, and blending those together. So I couldn't, in good conscience, coach a game where we're not asking them to use their brains more than anything else, because I think those are symbiotic with what we're trying to do, institutionally. And I would argue that that's across the board, Division I to Division III. One could argue that, well, at the elite Division I, these coaches have 4-year contracts and they have to get results. But I would feel as a player a little shortchanged that a coach wouldn't give me the latitude to make a 7-yard pass because he was fearful of me making a mistake. I think that is I think it's a very limiting approach to a broad experience that a player has in a program. And I tell these guys, I don't care if they lose 4-0, but if they play their best, it doesn't matter. We're going to walk out there with our heads held high and do that. If you guys beat a team 10-0 and you're absolutely, not combining, playing for yourselves, technically poor, but there's mistakes on the other team's end, that doesn't satisfy me. So it really goes back to what these guys are capable of. And I think so oftentimes, coaches, go after international older players. Coaches say, well, we've got to limit mistakes, and some coaching is limiting mistakes. But to be a center midfielder and touch the ball every 12th pass is that's a style I wouldn't want to be a part of, and I would want to treat my players like I would want to be treated, and that kind of goes into what we're trying to accomplish at Oglethorpe. So.
We could, I think, dig into this all day and maybe try to solve all of U.S. soccer's developmental problems. Maybe.
Another 30-minute call, and I'm sure we would get it all done.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's wrap up with this. The big news here in Atlanta this week has been Tata Martino declining to come back. He had an option to come back. There's a lot of job opportunities out there for him, and we'll see where he ends up next. But for somebody who I think appreciates the game being played the right way, how has it been for you to watch Tata Martino up close in Atlanta?
It's exciting. I have to rephrase what I was about to say. I try to do what he does because he's new to Atlanta. I was going to say he's been doing what I've been doing in Atlanta for a while with our teams, but that would be a little disrespectful for a guy who is extremely has a committed philosophy, knows the game very well, obviously played the game at an extremely high level. It's been, he's shown it's kind of like, he's come out here and said, this is what it is now. Granted, he has unbelievable players. We've spent a significant amount of money on getting a talent-rich group that can execute that philosophy. But he's committed to it. And I would argue that even if they didn't have an Almiron or Martinez, he would still do the same thing. I really would believe that. He would try to do it a different way, but with different players. But I think he would do it. I think you get to a certain point in the game and knowledge in the game that you have to do it that way. It's just – unless it's a completely contrasting, environment you're in, you have to do it that way. It's almost like, you see the light and you can't go back to the darkness, from a positivity standpoint, an energy standpoint. And, he's done that. And I think, he's been the best in the league for sure on style of play and, how to do it. So I've been very impressed. It's refreshing to have, more people like that kind of come closer to you, even though, we're not close, but, from a proximity standpoint, just in the city of Atlanta and having that style synonymous with Atlanta United and us being in Atlanta, it's exciting to see. And it forces you to get behind it because you know what the alternative is, and you certainly appreciate what he's committed to.
Yeah, and what's been interesting, I think, is the level has grown in Atlanta. I think it was already growing substantially before Atlanta United launched, but now that you've had kids just subconsciously watching the way Atlanta United plays for 2 years, that's going to carry over into the youth game in Atlanta, and I think it's going to improve the level of player being produced in the city and across the board. I think it's going to help programs like yours and everybody in town.
Well, I think the tangible, real example of that is you could turn to a kid who you knew went to the Atlanta game and said, "Hey, do you remember when Almiron did this? And what could he have done differently?" Or it kind of binds you together, and it's an easy reference point to, you don't have to get out your phone and do a YouTube video or something like that. And even if you do, that's okay. But you have that connection there, and the interest is unbelievable. And it's certainly, I mean, it is a fact that it will help, players develop faster having that connection with a great brand like Atlanta United have created over the last couple of years.
It's exciting times, and it's very exciting times for Oglethorpe with the conference tournament around the corner. Kicks off Saturday, 1 o'clock on campus against Hendricks. Come out, it's free. If you can't make it, you can watch on gopetrels.com. And then if everything goes well on Saturday, then it will be the conference semis and final the following weekend. John, let's catch back up after the conference tournament ahead of national tournament action.
Sounds great, Jason. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thanks for the time. This is another Soccer Down Here 1v1. We'll be back with more soon. Thanks for listening.